Okay, traveling by air can be pretty exhausting. So, no wonder a lot of people choose to sleep through it. And while doing so is simply inevitable if you have a long haul flight, you can actually put your health at risk if you doze off during takeoff or landing. You see, when a plane is taking off or landing, there's a rapid change in air pressure inside the cabin, and this affects the air trapped in your ears because there's not enough time to equalize the pressure. Because of it, a vacuum appears in part of your ear called the otherwise, you won't be able to equalize the air pressure in your ears by relaxing and opening up your eustachian tubes. And if you don't do that, you'll feel dizzy and your ears might hurt. In the worst case scenario, you might even get an ear infection, a nosebleed, or face hearing loss. To avoid all these unpleasant conditions, you have to yawn or swallow a lot. To produce enough saliva to swallow, try chewing gum, sucking on hard candy, or just drinking water. If this doesn't help, then pinch your nose closed while at the same time blowing it. Okay, now not snoozing during takeoff or landing makes perfect sense. But a lot of other things can make your trip on a plane less safe and less comfortable. For example, ignoring the safety instructions. You might be an experienced traveler and know them already by heart, but don't put on headphones or talk to your companions while a flight attendant explains everything. Yes, most airlines have similar safety presentations, but it won't hurt to freshen your memory. In case of an emergency, this information could save your life. Taking your shoes off. It seems like a good idea to give your feet some rest from your shoes during the flight. But the plane's cabin is airtight, and the air inside is constantly recycled. So just spare your fellow travelers from sniffing your socks and hope they'll do the same for you. Besides, the cabin's floor is full of germs. But if you really feel like kicking your shoes off, bring a pair of slippers in your carry-on. Not asking a flight attendant before switching seats. You might think it's no big deal, but it actually is. Of course, if you move a few rows, it won't cause any trouble on a large plane. But doing so on a regional plane can throw off an airplane's center of gravity, which is especially critical during takeoff. So let a flight attendant know about your plans to occupy some empty seat you've spotted, and make sure it's okay. Wearing your contact lenses. Choose glasses during flying, especially for long-haul flights. The air in the cabin is much drier than on the ground, and it can irritate your eyes. Also, if you plan to sleep during your trip with lenses that aren't for overnight wear, you could harm your eyes even more. Eating the food that touched the tray table. Unfortunately, the cleaning crew doesn't have enough time between flights to clean the cabin thoroughly. Experts claim that tray tables have 8 times more bacteria than the laboratory flush buttons. So, unless you brought your own placemat and sanitizer, say goodbye to that piece of sandwich that's just fallen on the tray table. Goodbye! Forgetting to drink water. The dry air in the cabin can make you feel dizzy or have a parched throat mid-flight. So staying hydrated is important. But here's the catch. The water tanks on the airplane aren't the cleanest thing on Earth. That's why you should put an empty bottle in your carry-on and fill it after the security check at the airport. Plus, avoid drinking tea or coffee on board. Even though they use boiled water, the caffeine in those drinks has a dehydrating effect. Using the blankets. Many airlines provide their passengers with blankets and pillows on demand, but they're not washed often enough either. Usually, the cleaning staff doesn't take care of them until the day is over. Unless you want to wrap yourself in a blanket that someone before you covered their feet with or sneezed on, bring a small one of your own. Turning off the air vent over your seat. Yes, it can get chilly on a plane, and you don't want to shiver during your whole trip or catch a cold. But it's better to put a sweater on than turning off the AC. Different airborne viruses and germs that are in abundance in any constricted space can hang in the air for up to 5 hours. So without proper ventilation, you just increase your chances of inhaling them. Not getting up from your seat. Sitting in your seat the entire flight is bad for your body. Get up to stretch your muscles or walk for a few minutes. If you can't get up for some reason, you can still do some exercises right in your seat. For example, twist your upper body from side to side and lift your knees to your leg room. Flushing the button in the lavatory with your bare hand. Now, just because it's not as dirty as the tray tables doesn't mean you should touch it. A public bathroom is a public bathroom, even up in the sky. After doing your business, wash your hands and use a paper towel to turn off the water and flush the toilet. You can even use it to open the bathroom door. Wearing shorts or any other clothes that don't cover your lower body fully. Think of short dresses, skirts, or jumpsuits. You probably can guess by now why it's a bad idea. Yes, germs are all around the seats and they're rarely deep cleaned. So protect your skin from coming into contact with them. Neglecting your skincare. If you fly in the daytime, don't forget to apply your cream with SPF. You're much closer to the sun on a plane, so just being inside a cabin or not sitting near a window won't save you from the rays. Plus, don't forget to moisturize your face during the flight to avoid parched and itchy skin from the low humidity. Drinking fizzy drinks. Traveling with a bloated stomach is a real ordeal. So stay away from fizzy drinks, since intestinal gas might expand up to 30% from the increase in altitude. Oh my! Simple bottled water is your safest bet when you're in the clouds. Keeping a heavy carry-on in the overhead compartment. It's understandable why a lot of passengers try to bring as much stuff as possible on board. But if a plane enters an area of turbulence, the overhead compartment might open up. And carry-on for a plane trip, in your opinion? Let me know down in the comments. Not fastening your seatbelt when the sign is on. Now, you must stay in your seat with the seatbelt fastened during takeoff, taxiing, landing, and during turbulence. There's no exception for this rule, even for flight attendants. Avoid a dangerous situation by staying in your seat, even if you want to go to the bathroom or stretch your legs until the light goes back off. By the way, keep the belt fastened and over your blanket if you use one and want to have a good sleep. This way, a flight attendant won't have to wake you up to make sure you're following the rule. Running to the exit. When the plane is landed, stay in your seat. No need to rush the open door, pushing others out of your way. Chances are you won't save any time by doing so and simply get stuck in the crowd while people gather their belongings and kids. You'll just be frustrated in the end. However, if you're in a rush for a serious reason or have a connecting flight, explain it to a flight attendant before landing, and they might help you get out faster. So there. Hey, if you learned something new today, then give the video a like and share it with a friend. And here's some other cool videos I think you'll enjoy. Just click to the left or right, and remember, stay on the bright side of life.
Back when I was a smoker, I used to light up in the car all the time. I know what you're thinking. I didn't know Dale Jr. was a smoker, but I was. But now, I want everybody to know, because I want to help people quit smoking just like I did. So when the folks at Nicorette called to talk about their new coated ice mint lozenges, I was really excited about it, because quitting's the hardest thing I ever did.
What's up?
And it feels impossible, but I did it, and you can too.
If you use taxi services often enough, you might know that taxi drivers have secrets they don't tell their passengers about. Let's figure out what things you should pay attention to while getting into a car, why you should always check the meter, and why it often takes taxi drivers so long to pick you up. Number 1, they may not have change, and it's for a reason. Most modern taxis already have POSs, but there are still a lot of cars that don't. In these vehicles, people have to pay cash. If the driver says they don't have change, the passenger will have nothing to do but to leave them a larger tip. Then you won't have to face an ultimatum at the end of your trip. 2, ever been there before? This phrase is one big red flag. After you hear it, it might make sense to call for a new taxi. A person who drives for a living and uses GPS at that shouldn't ask you such questions. It can indicate that they want to take advantage of you. And if you answer, "No, I don't know where it is," they may choose a longer route. 3, airport taxi drivers charge tourists more. If an airport taxi driver assumes that you're a tourist, they may decide to give you a sightseeing tour you haven't asked for. Of course, it'll cost you way more than just a direct taxi ride to your destination. That's why, if you're indeed a tourist, open GPS on your phone and ask the driver to take the fastest route possible. 4. A taxi driver may start a meter earlier. Some taxi drivers can start the meter not when you climb into their car, but as soon as they arrive to pick you up. Yep, it is against the rules. But if you don't pay attention to the meter that's already well on its way, you'll pay extra for the waiting time, which you aren't supposed to do unless it's more than 10 minutes. 5. They have a way to inform the police they're in trouble. Well, it might be hidden under their dashboards. If a passenger is causing problems, the driver can press this button and a flashing yellow light will appear at the vehicle's front and rear ends and behind its grille. Some taxi drivers push this button when they feel their passenger isn't going to pay for the ride. 6. They love traffic jams. Ever heard about the popular taxi company's motto, the passenger's safety over the driver's speed? Well, there are taxi drivers who love to misinterpret this rule to earn some extra cash. They take it extremely slowly at the traffic lights and consider traffic jams their best friends. If you want to avoid getting stuck, provide your driver with exact directions. 7. A taxi driver can drop you off earlier than needed. If there are some obstacles preventing them from going directly to your destination, for example, heavy traffic or some construction works, some taxi drivers may leave you several blocks away. This way, they save their time and gas money. The only thing you can do in this situation is to send a complaint to the company they work for. 8. They can't start a conversation with you. According to this unwritten rule, the only person in the car who can start talking is you, the passenger. Then the driver can reply. If you feel tired of listening to the taxi driver's life stories, you can politely interrupt them. On the other hand, if you're new to the neighborhood, it may be useful to ask your driver for some recommendations, like what places to visit and where to eat. 9. You can find yourself stranded. If you need to make several stops before arriving at your final destination, discuss it with your driver. Tell them exactly for how long you're going to be absent, and don't stay inside for longer than the agreed time. Taxi drivers need to earn their living, and they can't wait for you for hours. A new customer may come along, and you'll be left stranded before reaching your final destination. 10. Check the meter. Before starting your trip, make sure that the meter has the correct settings. Taxi companies can have different prices for certain parts of the day and night. If your driver puts a wrong type of ride in the system, the bill can turn out much higher than expected. 11. Keep track of the meter. You should not only sneak a peek at the meter at the beginning of your trip, but also watch it throughout the ride. Taxi drivers always watch passengers in the back. If they notice you aren't paying attention, the most dishonest ones can try to give you a larger bill. Check the meter several times throughout your trip. This way, you'll notice if the sum has suddenly increased. When you arrive at your destination, make sure that the numbers in your bill and on the meter match. 12. Check your valuables before leaving a taxi. Don't let your valuables lie around during a taxi trip. Before leaving the car, make sure you haven't left anything on the seat. Most taxi drivers go to great lengths to deliver forgotten items to their owners. And while doing it, they waste their time and gas. So if it happens to you, remember to tip your driver. Others just leave forgotten stuff at their company, and you can get it back by calling the lost and found number. But a tiny percentage of taxi drivers may keep your things, and you'll never prove that you left them in the car. 13. Taxi drivers can lure you with a low estimate. It's totally dishonest, but there are taxi drivers who tell you an estimate they know to be too low, only to make you pick their car. Then, at the end of your ride, you're in for a nasty surprise. Unfortunately, there's no sure way to find out if the estimate is true, and you're usually at the mercy of your taxi driver. 14. Ask for a fixed price in advance. A fixed price often turns out higher than it would be with a meter. One of the few valid reasons for negotiating a fixed price is being short on cash. In this case, if you know the price in advance, You won't have to spend the whole ride anxious about whether you have enough money to cover the bill. 15. Taxi drivers can manipulate GPS settings. It allows them to take longer routes and earn more money. The only thing you can do is to check the route you're taking on your device and discuss the road choice with the driver. Who knows? Maybe they're taking a longer way for a reason. 16. A taxi driver may not have a license. It rarely happens these days, but it does. Keep in mind that a taxi driver has to have their license displayed inside the car at all times. If you can't see it, don't be afraid to ask. If you find out that your driver doesn't have a license, leave the car and inform the police. Whatever reason for driving without a license they may have, it's still unacceptable. 17. Why taxi drivers take a while before picking you up. You call a taxi, and it takes the driver way longer than the estimated time to arrive. Been there, seen that. What most passengers don't know, though, is that many taxi drivers pick up a new ride before finishing the current one, or they just take their sweet time running some errands. 18. They can charge per person. Even though it's almost unheard of in most parts of the world, some taxi drivers can try to charge per person. Watch out for such cases and call the taxi company to make sure you aren't being fooled. The only way it can be legitimate is when you've ordered a van for more than 4 people. Even then, only the number of people above 4 is charged. Finally, be aware that when you're flying, the airline cannot charge you to taxi on the runway. Just thought you should know. Hey, if you learned something new today, then give the video a like and share it with a friend. And here are some other videos I think you'll enjoy. Just click to the left or right, and remember, stay on the bright side of life.
In 2010, a 29-year-old British construction worker was hard at work at the construction site. He followed all the necessary safety rules and was wearing a hard hat and a pair of sturdy steel toe-cap boots. But then he made the bad decision of jumping 6 feet from the scaffold to the floor. He looked down, and to his horror, a 6-inch nail had penetrated his boot and gone right through his foot. The poor guy howled in pain, and he was rushed to the emergency room. It was unbearable, and so he was given a pain reliever. That didn't do anything to stop the agony, and the doctors then gave him the strongest pain medication they had, fentanyl. After this, they carefully cut off the man's boot. But guess what? The nail had gone between...
What? Oh my God, what? Huh? What you mean you coming? Why you keep saying, oh my God? Oh my God, what? What?
He,
No, I'm serious. I'm not going out. I know you. You did tell me something.
let me end this stream real quick. Cause I know this dude just unfriended me.